Savannah always believed she could see people for who they truly were, especially her boss, Jonathan Hayes. Arrogant, controlling, cold. At least that was what she saw. But while everyone around her seemed to see another man behind the impeccable facade, she remained blind to something greater, until the day she happened to witness a scene that shattered all her certainties. Some secrets do not ask for the spotlight, and some truths can only be understood when one is willing to truly look. Hello, my friends. I am Linda, and this is Linda Love Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. The sun had barely risen when Savannah Miller stepped into the Modern Design Group for the first time that Monday. The clock read 6:30 a.m., and the company was still sleeping in silence. She liked to arrive early, especially when she was annoyed with a project that needed to be finished. And yes, she was annoyed. Another last-minute demand from Mr. Perfection, she muttered to herself while adjusting the design room's thermostat. As if we were supposed to foresee that he'd change his mind about the colours for the cosmetics campaign. Savannah was 29 years old, with alert, honey-coloured eyes and a creativity that frequently placed her at the top of the team's praise lists. With a degree in graphic design and a master's in visual communication, she had earned her position at MDG on her own merit. Her portfolio was impressive, her technique impeccable, but there was something everyone noticed and no one dared to openly comment on, her grudge against authority figures. And Jonathan Hayes, the 34-year-old CEO, was the ultimate authority of the company. "Good morning." Riley's voice, one of the junior designers, pulled Savannah out of her thoughts. "Wow, you started early today." "Finishing up the changes that our lovely boss demanded at 5 yesterday evening for 10 this morning," Savannah replied, rolling her eyes. Riley smiled awkwardly. He must have his reasons. The Elysian client is important for the company. "He always has reasons," Savannah made air quotes, "but he also always has that expression like he's doing a favour by breathing the same air as us mere mortals." "You know," Riley hesitated, placing her bag on the table beside her, "you're the only one who doesn't see who he really is." Savannah raised an eyebrow. "That phrase again. You all sound like a rehearsed choir defending the boss." "Because it's true," Riley insisted, lowering her voice. "Jonathan isn't just what you see in meetings. Last month, when my daughter got sick and I had to miss 3 days, he not only kept my full salary, but also recommended a specialist to consult her." "Probably to avoid a labour lawsuit," Savannah shrugged, returning to her computer. Riley sighed, giving up. It wasn't the first time she had tried to show Savannah another side of Jonathan. The morning progressed, and the office sprang to life. By 9:30, Savannah finally completed the revisions on the project. Her eyes burned with fatigue, but the result left her satisfied. Even under pressure, her work was impeccable. "Savannah?" Jonathan's voice sounded behind her, making her straighten her posture automatically. "Yes, Mr. Hayes," she responded formally, swiveling the chair. Jonathan was wearing a perfectly tailored graphite suit, without a single crease. His blue-grey eyes always seemed evaluative, analytical. Dark brown hair, precisely cut, completed the image of someone who controlled every aspect of his appearance, and, in Savannah's opinion, everything around him. "Could you show me the changes to the Elysian project? The meeting with them has been moved up to 10. Savannah felt a tightness in her stomach. "Moved up? But the deadline was—" "I know," he interrupted her with a gentle gesture. "It wasn't my decision. They have a marketing emergency and needed to rearrange the day." His voice remained calm, without the irritation Savannah had expected. "Everything is ready," she replied, transferring the files to his tablet. "I changed the shades to softer greens, as requested, and adjusted the typography to something more organic, while maintaining sophistication." Jonathan observed the work for a few moments, his eyes moving methodically across the screen. A silence that seemed endless to Savannah. "Excellent work," he finally said. "You managed to capture exactly what we needed. Thank you for the effort." Before Savannah could process the unexpected compliment, he had already turned to leave. However, he paused briefly. "By the way, Ask accounting to add overtime to your payment this month. I know you must have started early today." And he left, leaving Savannah confused. That didn't fit with the image of the insensitive boss she had constructed. During lunch, Savannah sat with Mark and Lena, two colleagues from other departments, in the small square in front of the company building. "You won't believe it," Lena began, opening her natural sandwich. "Jonathan approved all the funds for that scholarship program for employees' children." Mark smiled. "Not surprising. Last year, he paid for my specialization course in digital marketing without making a fuss. I only found out when the college called me to confirm my enrollment." Savannah bit into her apple, observing the two. "Why does he do it secretly? If he's so nice, why doesn't he publicize these things?" "Because he doesn't do it for show," Lena replied, shrugging. "He says educational incentives are investments in the company, not charity." "And that story about him taking care of his sick mother for years?" asked Savannah, still skeptical. "Everyone talks about it, but no one has details." Mark became serious. "Because it's true, but too personal. His mother had multiple sclerosis. He gave up an international career to stay close to her in her final years. He set up an office in the room next to hers." "How do you know all this?" Savannah asked. "My sister worked as her nurse for a while. She said she never saw a son so dedicated." Savannah absorbed the information in silence. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't reconcile these stories with the image of the cold and calculating man she saw every day. 2 weeks passed, with Savannah trying to ignore the positive stories about Jonathan. But in every meeting, every interaction, she began to notice small details. How he always thanked each person involved in the projects by name. How he offered water when someone coughed during presentations. How his serious expression occasionally softened when he heard innovative ideas. On Friday, an unexpected storm hit the city at the end of the workday. Savannah had stayed late, finishing a project that Jonathan had requested for the next week. Another last-minute request that fueled her renewed irritation. "Great," she murmured as she looked out the window and saw the torrential rain. Her umbrella was broken, and she had come by public transport. It was almost 8 in the evening when she finally exited the building, shielding herself as best as she could under a light coat. The cold rain soaked her hair in seconds. Normally she would take the bus on the main avenue, but she decided to take a shortcut through a less busy parallel street, where she could at least shelter under the store awnings. That was when she saw it. At first just a silhouette under the dim street lighting, a man in a suit kneeling near a service entrance. As she got closer, to her astonishment, she recognized Jonathan. He was completely soaked, his expensive blazer now serving as a cover for an elderly man sitting on the ground. The man, visibly homeless, was shivering and coughing while Jonathan spoke softly, offering him a thermos bottle which the elderly man accepted with trembling hands. Savannah instinctively stepped back, hiding behind a parked van. She watched as Jonathan helped the man to his feet, with a kindness she never would have imagined coming from him. With a firm arm around the old man's shoulders, he guided him to a car parked nearby. "Let's go, Mr. Howard. Dinner tonight is at the restaurant you like," she heard him say, his voice so different from the usual formal tone. There was a genuine tenderness there. Savannah remained still, watching the car slowly leave under the rain. The next morning, still intrigued by what she had seen, Savannah arrived early and found Dora, the receptionist who had been working at the company for over 20 years. "Dora, can I ask you something personal? About Mr. Hayes?" The grey-haired lady smiled. "Of course, dear. What would you like to know?" "Last night, Savannah hesitated, rearranging her words. "Do you happen to know if Mr. Hayes knows an elderly man, apparently homeless, who hangs around the office vicinity?" Dora's smile faded slightly. "You're talking about Mr. Howard?" It wasn't a question. "I think so. I heard that name." Dora sighed, looking around to make sure they were alone. Mr. Howard was the doorman of the building where Jonathan grew up. He was practically a grandfather to him. When Jonathan was 12, it was Mr. Howard who found him crying on the fire escape after his mother's first hospitalization. She paused. Years later, Mr. Howard lost his wife and son in an accident. The pain destroyed him. He began to drink, lost his job, his house. Jonathan searched for him for months until he found him living on the streets. And now he helps him, asked Savannah, feeling a lump in her throat. He tried everything, apartment, treatments, jobs. But Mr. Howard, some people break in a way that's hard to fix. He always returns to the streets, so Jonathan does what he can. Visits every week, brings food, clothes, tries to convince him to accept shelter at least on the coldest nights. Savannah felt her certainties disintegrating. Why does he never talk about it? About any of these good things he does? Dora smiled sadly. Jonathan believes that announced kindness is not true kindness. He often says that doing the right thing doesn't deserve applause. It's simply what should be done. In the following days, it was as if Savannah had gained a new pair of eyes. Where she once saw coldness, she now noticed reserve. Where she saw arrogance, she perceived just the seriousness of someone who took his work seriously. She began to notice details she had previously ignored. Jonathan leaving a discreet congratulations note on the desk of an employee who had been accepted to college, quietly organising a carpool rotation when the subway went on strike, staying late at the office when a team member needed guidance. On a particularly busy afternoon, Savannah was focused on her computer when she noticed someone leaving a cup of coffee on her desk. Looking up, she saw Jonathan. "I noticed you didn't go out for lunch. I thought you might need some caffeine," he said simply, already turning to leave. "Mr. Hayes," she called, feeling an inexplicable nervousness. "Thank you, not just for the coffee." He stopped, turning with a questioning expression. "I think that I've never seen you clearly before," she continued. "Maybe because I wasn't really looking." A brief smile lit up his face, the first genuine one she had ever seen. "Savannah, your work has always been exceptional. That's what matters in a professional environment. But I judged you as a person, not just as a boss, and I was wrong." Jonathan studied her for a moment. "We're all more complex than we appear at first glance, including you." The following weeks brought a subtle transformation in the dynamics between them. Savannah began to contribute in meetings more openly, without the previous defensiveness. Jonathan, in turn, started to actively seek her opinion on important projects. Working together on a larger campaign, they often stayed late, discussing ideas and possibilities. It was during one of these nights that Savannah really got to know Jonathan. Not the CEO, but the man. He talked about his love for analog photography, how he learned piano to play for his mother when she could no longer get out of bed, about his dream of one day opening a foundation to support family caregivers. In turn, Savannah shared her past, how she grew up in a home where her authoritarian father stifled any creativity, how she struggled to overcome the trauma of having her ideas constantly ridiculed, how this made her defensive with authority figures, especially men. "I think I projected a lot of that onto you," she admitted, as they organised the last files of the night. "I saw a controlling boss where there was only someone organised and focused." Jonathan smiled, looking at her in a way that made her heart race unexpectedly. "You weren't the only one with misconceived notions," he replied. "I thought you despised me. Now I realise you might have just been protecting yourself." The conversation was interrupted by the night guard, informing them that the central air conditioning would be turned off. It was time to go. In the elevator, a silence laden with something new hovered between them. Savannah realised she didn't want the night to end. "Do you want to have a coffee?" The words escaped before she could contain them. Jonathan looked at her with surprise, then with a restrained smile. "I would love to, but we are boss and employee," she completed, feeling the weight of reality. "Exactly," he replied with genuine regret. "As much as I want to say yes." In the following weeks, the tension between them grew almost palpably. They both maintained professionalism, but it was evident to those who observed closely. The glances that lasted a second longer, the hands that almost touched when exchanging documents, the way they sought to be on the same projects. It was Lena who first approached Savannah about the matter during a break. "So, you and Jonathan, huh?" she asked with a suggestive smile. "There is no Jonathan and me," Savannah replied, feeling her face heat up. "We have a strictly professional relationship." "That's a pity, because you two practically light up when you're in the same room." Savannah sighed. "Even if there were something, and there isn't, it would be complicated. He is my boss." "People find solutions when they really want something," Lena replied, shrugging before walking away. The solution arrived 2 weeks later in the form of an email. A competing company, Vision Creative, offered Savannah a position as a creative director with a considerably higher salary and better growth prospects. When she entered Jonathan's office to hand in her resignation letter, Savannah felt a heavy heart. Part of her was excited about the new opportunity, but another part lamented what could have been. "Congratulations," Jonathan said after reading the letter, his voice betraying restrained emotion. "It's an excellent opportunity. You deserve it." "Thank you. It was a difficult decision. I hope you know that you will be greatly missed here. Your talent is exceptional." Their eyes met, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. There was so much to be said, but the corporate environment around them imposed its limits. 2 weeks' notice, then, she finally said. "Yes, 2 weeks." On his last day, the team organized a small farewell. Gifts, hugs, promises to keep in touch. Jonathan remained quietly on the sidelines, observing. When the celebration ended and the employees returned to their stations, he approached. "My farewell gift," he said, handing her a small package. Savannah opened it, finding a handcrafted picture frame containing a black and white photograph of the city skyline, taken from an angle she had never seen before. "It's beautiful." "I took this photo on the day you told me you had never seen me clearly before," he explained. "I was thinking about how sometimes we need to change our perspective to see the beauty that's always been there." Savannah felt the tears threatening to fall. "Jonathan, You will do incredibly well at Vision," he gently interrupted. "And maybe, once you're settled there, we can have that coffee?" A smile lit up her face. "I would love that." 3 months later, Savannah was fully integrated into the new company. Her work had received praise, and her team respected her. But she still missed the old company, or more precisely, someone from there. On a sunny Saturday afternoon, while walking through the city's Central Park, she spotted a familiar figure sitting on a bench, feeding pigeons. It was that man she had seen Jonathan helping, Mr. Howard, now wearing clean clothes and looking healthier, smiling as he tossed crumbs to the birds. And beside him, in jeans and a t-shirt so different from his corporate image, was Jonathan. Savannah approached slowly. "Hello." Jonathan looked up, surprise giving way to a warm smile. "Savannah." "You were right," she said, sitting down next to them. "Sometimes we need to change our perspective to see what has always been there." Mr. Howard looked from one to the other, a wise smile on his wrinkled face. "You young ones complicate things too much. When you see with your heart, everything becomes clearer." Jonathan laughed, reaching out to touch Savannah's hand. "How about that coffee now?" he asked. Savannah intertwined her fingers with his, feeling as if she were finally seeing clearly, not just Jonathan but herself and all the possibilities that lay ahead. "I think we've waited long enough." If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.